Okay, well, we might as well get into it. Thank you for joining us today. For anyone that's new here, my name's Sam and I'm currently fulfilling Bree Chapman's role as Operations Manager here at Resilient Services. Bree is currently on maternity leave and has been a big part of being able to launch this webinar series from day one last year. Like we've done in the past, we will be recording this session and disseminating it to anyone who is not able to make it today. If you would like to, feel free to turn your camera on. If you don't, that is perfectly okay. So last year we discussed a variety of topics throughout our webinars. And within some of them, you may have heard the phrase radical candour mentioned a few times. Today, we are going to take an in-depth look at what it means to have a radically candid workplace. We'll also look at the disadvantages and negative situations that can occur when we aren't radically candid and honest with each other, and how this can affect us, particularly as women in leadership positions. We'll discuss how the concept of radical candour can help women overcome the negative impacts of gender bias in the workplace, and how we as individuals can start to introduce this concept to our workplace and change the environments we work for the better of everyone. I will also give you some insight into what it's like in a workplace that practices radical candour compared to one that does not, and the effect that it has had on my ability to reach the leadership and career goals as a woman in risk and disaster management. What is radical candour? Now, for those of you who may not have heard the term before, radical candour is the practice of challenging directly while caring personally. It is all about having sincere, direct communication with someone, whether the topic is easy or uncomfortable to talk about, while having genuinely good intentions and wanting to help the person, not hurt them. In theory, it sounds simple enough to be able to give honest feedback where it is due and to communicate clearly with all members of the workplace. But many workplaces, particularly large ones, lack the interpersonal connections between members of the workplace, and with that, the culture needed to foster such an environment. Radically candid workplaces encourage their members to get to know each other to the point where everyone is comfortable enough to have those tricky conversations instead of just sweeping them under the rug, because we're too uncomfortable and unsure how to talk to someone we're not too familiar with. At Resilient Services, radical candour is an important part of our culture. It's what makes us us. In the last session, I mentioned the term Watercolor Conversations. This is related to how we achieve radical candour, and it gives us the opportunity to get to know our staff on a more personal level. Another way we've been able to achieve it is through our daily or weekly meetings as a team. This is a time we make to talk about our day, our week, as well as being able to have the opportunity to support our staff in a manner that they may require, and gives them the opportunity to be comfortable with asking for anything that they may need to get them through. The key to radical candour is to maintain two aspects of caring and challenging. It is crucial that these two balance each other at all times, a bit like a base of a pyramid. If one overrides the other or one is lacking, the whole structure will come crumbling down. There are three undesirable outcomes that occur when the guidelines to radical candour get unbalanced. They are obnoxious aggression, ruinous empathy, and manipulative insincerity. I will go through each of these. Obnoxious aggression is what happens when someone is challenging but does not show personal care in what they are saying. To put it simply, they are clear but not kind. Ruinous empathy occurs higher on the personal care axis, where being nice gets in the way of being constructive and truthful. Often this happens with fear for hurting someone's feelings obstructs the opportunity to directly challenge them. This can be as equally destructive for both participants, as it undermines the leadership of the person giving criticism and compromises the productivity of the workplace by allowing problematic behaviour to continue. Manipulative insincerity is when you neither challenge a person or care about them. This is criticism that is neither kind nor clear, and praise that is non-specific and insincere. This kind of leadership style can lead to avoidance issues in the workplace, such as backstabbing, gossiping, and internal politics, which can make work a toxic place to be. As women in leadership, it can be easy to unintentionally fall into one of these characteristics. Women can often be accused of being aggressive when delivering criticism, as it doesn't fit the outdated mold of the typical woman in the workplace. Modernity has allowed women to have a voice and to have a say in how things are run. However, sometimes people are not ready to hear it. Women in leadership roles can avoid coming across as obnoxious aggressive by asking ourselves, am I being specific? Am I being sincere? Having a continuous flow of praise with co-workers lets people know that we care personally about all of them. Only praise people right before a comment of criticism doesn't show that the level of personal care that is needed to obtain radical candor. Unfortunately, women can also be recipients of ruinous empathy under the false pretenses that we cannot handle criticism. Another assumption placed upon women is that we are overly emotional, sensitive, and soft. It is important to remind co-workers and bosses that you deserve the opportunity to receive criticism so that you may learn and grow like any other employee. If you're feeling like the people around you are holding back, it is okay and completely professional to demand to be spoken to equally like anyone else, with care, but also with challenge. Sorry about that, guys. I forgot to put my phone on silent today. These are just two of the challenges that women may face when working in leadership roles, yet there are many more. Sadly, a lot of these challenges relate to dealing with traditional sexist and unfair ideologies about women that are ancient untrue. To understand how prevalent this issue still is today, we are going to have a quick look at the Heidi versus Howard case study. This study was conducted at Columbia Business School about a successful Silicon Valley venture capitalist, Heidi. Half of the class, however, received the case study containing the name Heidi, and the other half, the name was changed to Howard. The students found that both Heidi and Howard were competent. However, Heidi was significantly less likable. This shows the negative correlation between women and the power that still exists, and also highlights the preconceived challenge that women face of being liked versus being successful. Dismantling the relationship between gender biases and leadership relies on having an honest and upfront working environment. Radical Candour challenges traditional ideas of business. It allows employees to challenge others and therefore challenge themselves. It's a start to working towards a future where women and everybody have the opportunity to be the best worker they can be without any reason left behind. Being open, being honest, and being kind, that's what Radical Candour is all about. Now that we can give you all the textbook facts and figures as to why Radical Candour workplaces is beneficial for us women, but I want to tell you about my experiences working in a radically candid environment and how it has differed from those previous places I've worked, and how this has impacted on my leadership opportunity as a woman in risk disaster management. Now, before I came to Resilient Services, I had worked in numerous industries, numerous offices, and it was different experiences depended on different industries, and not all of them nice. I first entered into the corporate world prior to, sorry guys. My apologies. Seems everyone wants me at once.
You're very popular.
I am today.
It's always at the worst times as well. No need to apologise.
It is. Unfortunately, that is John that's ringing me.
Oh, do you need to bring him back?
No, that's fine, Sue. Can you just send him a message?
Yep, reminding him. I will.
Just tell him that we're in the world, please. Yeah, so I first entered the corporate world before Resilient Services, and it was not a pleasant experience at all. I needed to change careers for my health, and I got given the opportunity, and it was the worst experience of my life. My boss at the time was very rude, obnoxious. If you made a mistake, he would yell and scream at you. I remember multiple employees running out of the office in tears on a daily basis from this man. And
we never worked together. We didn't work together, do we?
No.
It's unfortunate when the stories are not unusual, isn't it?
It is. It is. It put me off coming into a corporate role quite a bit, to the point where I actually ended up back out of the industry because I couldn't bear the thought of wanting to work in another environment like that. And then, unfortunately, I had a few health issues, so I had to resign from that job. And I was looking for work, and it wasn't until John found out that I was looking for a job. He was ready to bring on some new blood into the company, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified of accepting the position. But I got to know the employees, I got to know John. I decided to accept the role, and I've never looked back. John has shown that not every company is mean and nasty. He's always believed in radical candour. I have made my mistakes, but I've learnt from them, and he's given me the opportunities to be able to move forward, grow and learn, so I can be in the position I am today and continue on going up. He's always pointed out things that, you know, I may not have noticed, but he does it in a very pleasant manner. Our little business is more like a family, but we are productive, and we manage to get through everything. It's made a big change in how I perceive the corporate world, let alone women in leadership, and it's proven that we can do it. We just need to be in the right environment. Sue works alongside me now at Resilient Services. She's fairly new to the company, but Sue, have you got anything you would like to add?
Well, I've had probably a longer experience in the corporate workforce than you have due to my age, and I certainly spent quite a lot of time in male-dominated workforces. I first started out in the Merchant Navy, which was extremely male-dominated. I think I saw one other female in 3 years that I was out at sea, and then I moved into air traffic control, which again male-dominated. And I think it's a difficulty of getting a seat at the table, or even just being given that the initial same level playing field, that if a man walks into a room, I think there's a certain level of expectation and give, whereas I think if a female walks into a room, I think there's a little bit of what have you got to say for yourself kind of thing going, why are you here sort of thing. So I think, and I think all of this conversation unfortunately is a bit, it's something we have to live through. I think it will pass, and we will get past this, and we will all be able to be recognised for who we are and what we can bring to the table. But I think we still have to work through this process a bit more. I do appreciate very much the organisation that I am now supporting and now a part of, and the way that they talk to each other and the way that they assign work. Check where the work's being done. It doesn't feel like there's any, I mean, they talk quite a bit about no BS in this organisation, and there definitely is an absence of that. And I really appreciate having walked into a place where you can just do your work, get on with it, do a good job, support the clients, and then hopefully the clients come back and keep wanting you to help them. And that to me is what this organisation is about. I very much appreciate it. Thanks, Sam. Hello, Julie. Julie's our newest starter. She's just started today. Sam and Laura, this is Julie.
Well, Julie and
Nice
I
to
just
meet
spent the last
everyone.
15
Yeah,
minutes
Zoe and
chatting.
I go way back now.
Oh, how funny. We
Hi,
clicked
Zoe.
the old link. How are you? We yeah, we're in Breeze Link.
Oh,
Yeah.
we've had a
And
bit of
I
trouble
had-
trying to
yeah.
updating it.
I had like a clear message to myself, use this link instead of this one. And I didn't read that part. I just jumped in the old link, but lucky because yeah, I got to have a good old yarn. So yeah.
We might review the mail out process or something.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a pain
right.
to re-establish it. For some reason, it's just not going the way it should. So we'll
That's
look
all right.
at updating it and resending out those invites for the next one.
Awesome.
So we've just been discussing a lot in the way of radical candor, and why it's such an important role in our workplaces, and you know how it can have a negative impact, especially for women in leadership roles, and how that adapting the process could actually help us in the long run. So we were just sort of discussing our personal experiences with toxic workplaces, and if we've ever experienced or are experiencing a place that has adapted radical candor. Sam, have you got anything you'd like to add?
This is actually the first time I've heard the phrase, so
Yeah.
I am an absolute sponge today just listening to that, and it absolutely sounds fantastic. I unfortunately have not had great times in previous roles in corporate. John knows this quite well. When he was at PowerCore and I was at Gemini, I actually resigned twice in my first 6 months there. And my final resignation was actually on the last day, what would have ended my probation period. And that was the first time in my career, and my career was 20 years in the Australian Defence Force, a mix of reserve and full-time. So I'm a veteran as well, having served in Iraq. That was actually the first time I understood the concept of an ego and how damaged it can be when somebody actually works very hard to destroy your soul, and yeah, build that back up again. So it's really interesting to hear discussions like this because look, unfortunately, you know, linking it towards women and sort of women in the workplace, I have been lucky enough not to be able to associate my treatment at corporate organizations to being a woman. I think it's just based on egotistic sociopaths. You know, I think it's, you know, they needed somebody to take that out on. I just happened to be there with eyes wide open, you know, willing to lap it all up. But this is good. This is really good. This is really empowering. I've taken some notes. It's very good.
Do you think, Sam, that the Defence Force practices this more than the corporate world does?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because back in the Defence Force, when you're giving feedback to your team or to your staff, you're actually trained as an instructor, you know, or in your leadership role to start with, you know, a positive, a negative, a positive. So, you know, that was a really great presentation, you know, really liked your enthusiasm and you hit those points right. However, I really want you to work on A, B, and C. But remember that overall it was fantastic and I think everyone learned a lot. So there is an actual way of training how to give that direct feedback and not destroy somebody's soul, you know, whilst you're doing so. So I actually think, yes, Defence does it very well. And look, I've got, you know, other like colleagues from Defence, you know, females who have very different stories about how they were treated, but I can walk away saying I actually feel that I was treated you know, fairly and equally, but I do believe that is associated to my behaviour and the way I present. yeah, unfortunately in defence I did see some of the battering of eyelids, and I don't want to run as fast as you because I'm a girl and so on, whereas I just never pulled that. I'm aware of where I am and what I'm, trying to achieve by being here as well. So I had very good experiences in that regards. One of the worst things I think defence did quite a few years ago was go for a quota of females in leadership roles. And this is a hotly contested topic, and in corporate as well. So for example, BHP down the road have now gone for a 50% quota of female, and their reputation is just escalate. Just people are loving it. Whereas defence did a 30% quota of female in leadership roles many years ago, and what it did was create a culture of, do you deserve this job, or are you part of that 30%? So it's interesting the way organisations can handle it, and I saw that occur quite negatively in defence. But it's interesting to watch when organisations actually try to increase their diversity via quotas rather than transparency of recruitment and so on.
That's a valid point too.
Sorry, I think that quota issue actually, Sam, is a very good something to really get into and have a good discussion about, because there are a couple of different ways of coming at that. But yeah, it's a very interesting point you make. Something I wanted to say about the feedback thing I've been thinking about lately is what makes the other person right about when they're giving the feedback. And this is something I think we need to have a think about when we're doing this too, is what makes my way right. But exactly what you're saying, Sam, have you thought about this, or this is what I want you to focus on? That's fantastic stuff, whereas that's not how it's always delivered, and I've just walked out of an organisation that I felt quite sick in, unfortunately, just because of the behaviour and the way that people would talk to each other, and the big corporate requirements of objectives and the things we're trying to do. It's kind of like, why are we trying to do this? So I think this being in a smaller organisation, being able to talk and focus on what needs to be done is refreshing, I think.
Good.
Definitely, it is. Anyone else want to jump in and share anything?
I'll jump in. I think I'm with Sam. I haven't actually heard the term radical candour until I received the invite and did a bit of Googling. But I think age has been a very big hurdle for me. I'm considered quite young. I've entered the utility industry at the ripe old age of 25, and that's where I met John. But the first 2 years of my life in this corporate environment were quite traumatic from a management perspective. And that was both male and female. My first manager, when I was a contractor temp, I was pregnant, and he said something along the lines of, no one's going to hire you to be permanent while you're going to go on maternity leave. So that automatically had me one foot out the door thinking, what's the point of coming back or continuing on? And then another manager I had was, once I was made permanent, thankfully, her opinion was I was only made permanent based on the relationships I had made within the business, not what I could contribute to the business. So it was a very traumatizing sort of instilling self-doubt within myself, and that sort of not the progressive sort of management that I had sought. But when I brought the issues up to senior management, they actually recognized the behaviors and recognized the impact it was having on myself. And they were fantastic. They were very quick at implementing change and championing values, which is why I've stayed in here for the past 7 years. It is a very male-driven industry, being in the utility industry. And obviously having so many changes and regulatory requirements, it is sort of hard. You feel like a duck treading water a lot of the time, trying to keep your head afloat. But the management and the structure that we have at the moment, my team, in fact, has 2 males to 7 females. And our managers are very much championing who we are rather than what we have been. So what he sees our potential, and he sees where we can be. Being in the utility industry, it used to be very much what makes us look better, and we're sort of changed the focus to be what makes us be better. that's sort of the philosophy, I guess, of our team, what each individual can contribute and where we can go from there. And it's given us the confidence to have those open, harsh discussions, to be taken seriously, to have that credibility behind who we are. And it's instilled a lot of growth as well, and a lot of confidence within the team. So a lot of the people within our, I guess, wider team know of John and know of the positive contribution that he had played with United Energy and Multinet Gas in empowering people, and also giving people the opportunity to have a voice, and have that voice being taken with credibility and confidence. And if there was any doubt, or if there were any questions, they didn't come across negatively. They came from a place of learning, and they came from a place of, let's see where we can improve this. So it's sort of a motto that I've taken on as a manager myself. Rather than pointing out the negative, it's to identify opportunities. And I think that that's something that really needs to be brought across the board, especially in the utility industry. It can be very cutthroat, but it's slowly changing. It just depends on who you talk to and what day you talk to them, really, but it is slowly changing.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that, Laura. Anyone else?
I'll just pop in here. I come from a media background, so 15 years in media. I've always known to have high management or mid-management always be a man in a suit, and have most of the females within the team, report to a man. So times have changed in the last few years, but definitely, if you've ever watched the series Mad Men that day, and I think, yeah, it's nice to see that women have more of a voice in the last few years, especially in media, and they're appointing more women in the industry as for higher management. It's really nice to see. So I can't personally say like I've had a personal experience with Radical Candour. I'm also very new to the term, but yeah, I come from a background where it's very male dominated, and it's slowly changing. But yeah.
Well, hopefully it'll keep changing in the near future. So
I think it's sociological as well. Like, it's society that's changing as well. Business. I mean, obviously it's part of it, but it's not that long ago that I mean, things have changed so significantly. When you mentioned the series, Julie, I was thinking of something that I watched just recently, which was Take Me Back for Dinner. And it goes through, it's on SBS, and it's a series, and it goes through just the last 100 years. Society has changed so dramatically. I mean, women couldn't really get a job other than a secretary or, a typist or something, back in the probably 70s, 80s. I mean, that's only not that long ago. So it's, 40 years, we've really just, got a voice, and we have to grow now. And as much as people say it's getting better, and it is in some industries, and, I think there's a long way to go. But it's places like this that we get to talk it out, which is, makes it okay. But yeah, society in itself, it's certainly a long time in coming, wasn't it?
Definitely.
I'm really looking forward to the day when we can all just be workers and be valued for
who we are,
to the table, what we can provide, what we can do, support everybody, and we don't have to worry about anything else.
Yeah, that's it. The research really shows that we've got another, I think 70 years or something until, we will just be treated evenly in the household and in the workplace. But
70 years. Awesome.
Apparently.
It's funny.
I'm from a sociological background, obviously, but yeah, I think we've yeah, it's lovely to speak it out, but at the same time, I think you know, these quotas and things like that, I mean, they shouldn't be the case. It's just for so many years society has dictated exactly the social construction of reality is what it is.
I think the one thing about the quotas, and you know, hopefully we'll look into thinking about this a bit more, but I was told when I was struggling with this idea as well, I was told that you can't treat inequality with equality. You can't just keep going expecting that things to change if you don't do anything dramatic. And that's really what the quotas were about, was
dramatic.
Unequal measures that needed to happen to create equality. And it did take me a little bit of time to get my head around that, but I sort of understand it a bit more. There might be something worth looking into and having a discussion on in another time.
Yeah,
it's like a KPI, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Love KPIs.
Yeah. It's like, let's recruit the better half.
I'm so happy to have escaped that. But the radical candor in this company, it is refreshing, actually. It is nice just to know that I can say what I want to say in a respectful way, and that it will be taken as somebody coming from somebody else who's intelligent and has something to say. And if you don't understand it, then have a bit more of a conversation to work it out. So it is a very refreshing thing to have walked into.
No, definitely. So now that we've pulled apart what radical candor is, why we should implement it in our workplaces, but how do we actually achieve that? I've got a, list of a few ideas that, may help it's good to see that most of us in here today are in areas where, it's not too much of a disturbance, that, most of us are practicing radical candor, and, it's good to see. But, for anyone else that isn't, the idea is to start small, change the way you take things, the way you are towards other people, and it'll slowly start creating that flow-on effect. If you go in with a bad head, everyone around you is going to see that, but if you go in there and just do little bits and pieces and, just to improve the morale around the workplace, you'll find that, eventually it will have that flow-on effect. Education is also key. The more we can educate on things like radical candor, the more people understand it, and realize that it's not just a thing that we're going through, and it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And just connect with everyone on different levels, learn to be adaptable, and read people is the main key. Everyone takes things differently. Some people are happy for, you to be pretty direct and whatnot. Some people, need a little bit more encouragement behind it. So, start small is always the way to go. But that's just my opinion. So, anyway, I would like to wrap that up there. If you don't have to run off, feel free to stay on and have a bit more of a chat if you wish. I will stop the recording now. If you're happy to stay on, please do. If not, I will see you all next month, and I promise I will get that link fixed up.